Rural hospitals will close if Donald Trump's big, beautiful bill passes. Here's why. Rural hospitals are profoundly dependent on Medicaid funds to keep their doors open, some more than others. Across the country, we know that there are a number of hospitals who are operating on razor-thin margins. Here in Hibbing, Minnesota, where I practice, this is one. Without those Medicaid funds, this hospital will likely close. And if this hospital closes, that means that all of these folks, many of whom don't have the means to travel for care, will lose access. And that's just plain bad. Why? Because this budget takes dollars away from hardworking Americans and it gives it to wealthy corporations. We didn't vote for this.
It really genuinely is blowing my mind that, they're willing to risk shutting down the only hospitals in some, rural areas that rural folks have access to, all just to hand out more perks to wealthy corporations. And that's essentially kind of what's going on. And that's so sad.
It's not red or blue, it's life or death. A new letter from Democratic leaders warns that 15 rural hospitals across Texas are on the verge of shutting down if Trump's big, beautiful bill becomes law. These are hospitals in towns like Marble Falls, Llano, Levelland, Big Springs, Smithville, Winters, and more, places where Trump won big and where these hospitals are often the only option for miles. If those hospitals close, thousands of Texans could be left without access to urgent medical care. That means longer drives, higher risks, and lives lost. Not because help didn't exist, but because it was too far away. Many of these communities helped elect Trump. Now they could lose their hospitals because of him. This isn't a partisan warning, it's a reality check. Lives are on the line, and Texans deserve better, no matter where they live or who they voted for. I'm Haley in San Marcos, Texas, and you can find the letter to Trump, the full list of at-risk hospitals and more on today's episode of the Daily Dispatch, everywhere you stream Progress Texas podcasts. It's not red.
Yeah, when you realize that these folks in these areas and in this, especially Texas communities, are about to lose their only lifeline for emergency care, like she said, and we're hearing about these hospitals within miles, it really hits home that this isn't about scoring political points anymore. It's about basic human survival, but that goes out the window, I guess.
Hey everyone, it's Andy. I'm out on the road, but wanted to take a minute to tell you that I believe that healthcare is a basic human right, and the citizens of the United States of America should be able to see a doctor in and around where they live. That's why this big, ugly bill is so dangerous and devastating. It is going to damage rural health care in a way that we might not be able to recover from. Just in Kentucky, it's predicted to close or threaten to close up to 35 rural hospitals. Each of those has hundreds of jobs. Each of those is the largest or second largest employer in their community. What it's going to do to the economy of these communities is going to damage them so much. And then for people living in these areas, whether they have private insurance or Medicaid, they're going to have to drive hours just to see the same doctor that used to live in their community. So raise your voice, speak up, speak out. We got to stop it.
Your voice really does matter. I mean, he's right. It kind of nails the double whammy here, right? That this isn't just about stripping away basic human rights to see a doctor when you're sick. It's about actively gutting the local jobs and economies that are holding these small towns together.
We all know the Senate is currently debating the nasty, horrible, awful bill, and they will probably be voting on it tomorrow. If that goes through, I realize that my hometown hospital will be at high risk of closing. Not only that, but another one that is close to it will also be at a high risk of closing, meaning 3 communities would be going to 1 hospital. So here's what that would look like. You already think you're waiting a long time at the ER? Well, that's going to go up because there's going to be more people trying to get into this one hospital. And then think about the ambulance. If you need an ambulance, depending on where you are, can they get to you? And if they do, it's just going to be a lot more of a delay. And what if you need surgery? Just all of that, there's going to be a lot more people that's going to be backed up. And there will definitely be a staffing shortage because there's going to be an influx of patients. And if they do hire more people, how are they going to get the beds to put you somewhere in the ICU or wherever you need to be? Just because they hire more people doesn't mean they have a place to put you. There's going to be a longer travel time for people to get to the hospital. So what if you are a pregnant woman or somebody that you care about is pregnant and their water breaks and they're going to have to be traveling an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours to get to the hospital? And I also think about elderly patients like my parents. My parents still live by where this hospital is most likely going to be closing. They're going to have to travel a lot longer if they need care. And the burnout risk of the staff that is there now having this influx of 2 other communities going on to their hospital, that's going to be huge. There are around 338 hospitals that are at a high risk of closing if this bill goes through. I'm going to put a link of the list of those in my link tree, so go check it out and see if there is one that's going to be close to you. There is still time to call these senators and just basically say, why do you hate your constituents? Why are you trying to take away all of this care from them? And put the pressure on them. They are going to want to be reelected. And so we need to let them know that that's not going to happen if this terrible, awful, horrible bill goes through.
Well, things did. This was filmed last year, so we can see that a lot of the stuff she's talking about kind of came to fruition. But, what really gets me about her point is, it's the terrifying domino effect. Because if you start knocking out these hometown lifelines and hospitals, you aren't just hurting one community, you're totally overloading the few surviving hospitals in other communities and leaving out likely the most vulnerable neighbors completely stranded, which stinks.
If you live in Maine, Utah, Alaska, Wisconsin, Kentucky, or Florida, you might lose some of your hospitals. I need you to watch this. A report recently came out that if Trump's big, terrible bill passes, there are a huge number of at-risk rural hospitals that are likely going to close. These senators put it together, including 2 from my own state, Oregon. The total number that we could lose is 338 rural hospitals, which means people will die. Wait till you see how bad it is in each state, and the last one is the worst. And I'm sharing these states specifically because these senators can be swayed to a no vote. In Maine, Senator Susan Collins could lose 2 rural hospitals. So, ma'am, how do you feel about that? In Senator Mike Lee's state, he could lose 3 in Utah. Senator Murkowski, who tried to do these totally sketchy carve-outs where she's like, the rest of America can lose their health care, but Alaskans will be fine. But then that got thrown out because it was not fair. In her state, 5 rural hospitals could close, and in Alaska, that is life or death. Senator Johnson in Wisconsin, his state's gonna lose 3. This one was so big I had to make it a sticker. This is our dear doctor friend, Senator Rand Paul in Kentucky. 35 hospitals could close. How are you gonna sleep at night, not only as a senator, but as a doctor? And lastly, Senator Rick Scott in Florida could lose 1. So what you need to do is super easy. Yes, you can call, but they're not gonna be in their offices right now. They're gonna be on their phones, however. So comment, DM, all the things to call them out and embarrass them on social media and say, how is it you want hospitals, rural hospitals, to close? Why do you want your constituents to die? You don't? Okay, cool, please vote no. I'm going to tag them, and I'm going to put their information in the comments as well. And let me know when you've contacted them.
That is insane. Hearing a doctor lay out the hard reality of over 300 hospitals from Maine all the way to Alaska. Alaska's a big one too. We're on the chopping block, really exposes how much out of touch this legislation is, with the needs of everyday working class families. It's crazy that it's really happening. It really is.
This Medicaid cut is going to be absolutely devastating, guys. Rural hospitals all across the country are already on life support, and this bill is basically pulling the plug. They are not just trimming around the edges. They're gutting Medicaid funding, and rural hospitals rely heavily on Medicaid reimbursements just to survive. It's not just for people who are on Medicaid. These cuts affect everyone, because when a hospital shuts down, it shuts down for everyone. Doesn't matter if you've got private insurance, Medicare, or nothing at all. If the ER is gone, it's gone. In Nebraska, there's already a rural hospital planning to close, and they're being honest about why. It's because of these anticipated federal cuts, and it's not just one. Over 100 rural hospitals have already shut down in the past decade, and hundreds more are on the brink. This bill could push dozens, maybe even hundreds over the edge. And people don't realize how much damage this does to a town. The hospital's not just a place for emergency, guys. It's where babies are born. It's where cancer gets caught early. It's where your kid goes when they break their arm. It's one of the biggest local employers. It supports pharmacies, nursing homes, ambulance services. When a hospital closes, the entire local economy takes a hit. The whole community suffers. And let's be clear, this is not just about weeding out undeserving people. That is bullshit. These cuts hit working families, elderly folks, people with disabilities, veterans, kids. And even if you don't have Medicaid, your hospital might still close down because it can't survive without that funding. This is what happens when you let politicians treat human lives like budget lines. They're not just cutting costs, they're cutting access, cutting jobs, cutting lives short. People are going to die because they won't be able to get help in time. That's not dramatic, that is reality. And pretending it's anything else is just cowardly and ridiculous. And yeah, this bill might pass in the next day or two, but we better remember every single fucking name that signed off on it, because once these hospitals are gone, they're not coming back, and neither should the people who voted to let it happen.
Fair. I mean, you'd think that losing 100 hospitals over the last decade would be a massive wake-up call, but Instead, they're pushing a bill that, practically sprints to pull the plug on 100 more and tank those local economies right along with them. And again, look at what we're experiencing now. People are right.
Let's pretend you're a hospital and see how the Big Beautiful Bill Act affects you. You own an average run-of-the-mill hospital. 2 patients come in and they both need emergency medical care. One patient has commercial medical insurance, the other one does not. The care for both patients costs $2 each. $2 for patient 1 and $2 for patient 2. For patient 1, you go to their commercial insurance payer, you negotiate, you get your $2 back. Patient 2 can't pay the $2, but because the government knows that they're living in poverty, they agree that they are going to pay you, the provider, the $2 on the patient's behalf. The costs are $4. You have $4 in your hand. Now, let's say the government says, you know what, we're actually not going to pay for some of these patients. So the next time when the 2 patients come in, your cost as the doctor is $4. Now, you get $2 back from the commercial insurance payer, but these other $4, the government says, we're not paying that. So what do? You go back to patient 1 and you say, hey, unfortunately, I'm going to need $4 from you, patient 1. Even though your care only costs $2, I'm going to need $4 because I need to cover all of these costs. Now, let's take this a step further and assume that you, Dr. Jean, you are a doctor who owns a rural hospital instead. So now, instead of half of your patients having commercial insurance and half being under the poverty line, now both patients are under the poverty line. So now the same 2 patients come in and they both need emergency care worth $2 each. Now you don't have a commercial insurance to bill for any of this. And also the government said, hey, we're not going to let you bill us for this either. So what do you do with your $4 costs? Nothing. You can't pay your doctors, you can't pay your bills. And so eventually these $4 build up and you close. Now patient 1 and patient 2 who had to come to you for emergency medical care, except now that you're closed, now they have to go somewhere else, somewhere further, if they make it. Let's pretend you're a hospital and see how the Big Beautiful...
That's crazy. This breakdown is the ultimate reality check for anyone thinking that their private insurance keeps them safe, because it proves that everyday working families are always the ones in the end who end up quietly footing the bill for these massive healthcare cuts. But beyond that, though, that's the end of the video. If you want to, keep in the loop with all this kind of stuff, make sure to subscribe and like, and I'll catch you in the next one.